Well, friends, good afternoon. Indeed, it is a pleasure to have you over here. On behalf of the Association of India Management Schools and on my personal behalf, I extend a very hearty and warm welcome to every one of you present over here. I'm sure you are aware of the Association of India Management Schools about AIMS. I think it will be not out of place just to mention for people, those who are joining for the first time, AIMS webinar. AIMS is an association of around 800 business schools in the country. Indeed, this is one of the largest association having this membership. And I must mention that AIMS has got an institutional membership only. It doesn't have an individual membership. And that is why it becomes one of the largest, in fact, association of the business schools. Therefore, its stakes indeed are very high in terms of being a part of the management education system. It has got various roles indeed, and more prominent one being the advocacy roles. It tries to advocate as to what really are the issues and challenges, the opportunities exist in the management education arena in India and abroad. And it has got number of, in fact, awards for the faculty and the students. Therefore, we extend a hearty welcome to everyone, particularly because we in AIMS has got one very important test for the management, which is called 𝗤𝗲𝗀𝗻 test. I'm sure some of the students, those who have been a part of it, might have also undertaken that test and being a part of the admission process too. So that is what AIMS is. AIMS is very active, in fact, in sharing the various perspectives on the management education field. And these perspectives, for example, is in terms of some of the webinars, workshops, etc. And I'm happy to mention this is the 21st webinar in the series of the webinars being conducted by AIMS during this lockdown. You can see, therefore, how much active indeed AIMS is to sharing their views, inviting experts, and then trying really to help people to form their own opinion about the management education. We have got, in fact, with us the experts, very eminent people, and the theme that we chose, and which I will talk about it later, this is the redesigning the management education curriculum. I'll come to this part a little later about it as to how we have chosen this theme, what has really gone into it. But I must mention that the people, they are who's who about the management education field. They have been kind enough really to spend their time with us. They have accepted our invitation. They are with us. And I must introduce, to begin with, Mr. D V Shastry. I think just look at it. He's currently currently with the Executive Director HRD, the GAIL, and he was a Director Personnel in the Electronic Corporation of India. And he's MTech from IIT Bombay. He has got a PG diploma in management and others. And he looks after the talent acquisition, performance management, etc., those issues which are so important for any organization. Under his leadership only, GAIL has got one of the awards, the execution. GAIL has got the Learning and Development R&D Startup and called this an award for this under his leadership only. So we extend a very hearty welcome to you, Mr. D V Shastry. It's really a pleasure to have you over here. Another one, Professor Sushil Sharma. I must mention he did not give it to me, but I know he is double PhD. In fact, he is PhD in 2 subjects. And he's currently a professor in the Computer Information System at Ball State University, Miller College, and an associate dean there. He's an expert. In fact, he's the most quoted person in the US about the IT field. And he has been in IIM Lucknow, where again, he was the advisor to the UP government for IT and education to begin with, when IT was there during the early days, when IT was really coming into the field of UP. Dr. Sharma has got received so many research grants and has won numerous professional honors internationally. He has co-authored number of books, 13 in number, and published around 300 refereed articles. In fact, he, as I said it too, he's the most cited author in the information system area in the US. In fact, he has visited all over the world. Talk of any country, and he was there as a teaching, visiting faculty. He has been consulted by people in the information system arena. And therefore, Professor Sharma, thank you very much for accepting it, and welcome on behalf of AIMS and on my personal behalf. I'm sure this is going to be a very fruitful, enriching session for every one of us. I must now come to, in fact, to the point of that we got this 21st webinar about this topic. This is called Redesigning the Management Education Curriculum Post-COVID Era. I must say that this topic, though we have been talking about management education for long, I think online, offline teaching, pedagogical, many other issues, in fact, in many webinars, there have been, in fact, we have been working and really been listening and also trying to have expert opinion from people all over. But we thought we should try also to concern with little more focused area of the curriculum. And as I said it to you, 3 very important points have been, in fact, immediate concern, which have really come to why we have chosen a topic on this. Number 1, I have been in the field of management education for quite a number of decades, in fact. And I have worked in different setups like IIMS, SPGen, MDI, private schools, universities, and so on. And every time I have got a feeling personally, and likewise, many people of my type will be having a feeling that industry used to say there is a gap between what we teach in the business schools and what is being required by the industry. And this gap has always been there. And this is what industry has always been talking about us. And we used to feel small as a faculty. We were trying really to bridge this gap. Not that we did not try to attempt it. As a faculty, in fact, we did try to attempt to bridge this gap. We didn't succeed. I think not because of our inactive on our part, we were very active. We wanted really to bridge this gap very, very actively. But somehow it happened, the change which was taking place in the industry, in the business was so fast and so varied and so, but nature was so different that if we fill up one gap, we found there's another gap has surfaced. And then we try to fill up that, then another has really surfaced. And therefore it so happened as we could not fill up the gap which was there between the industry and the business schools. This led us, for academic professionals like us, to start having a feeling. Are we serving only industry as a part, or are we having a broader objective serving the society in general? And therefore, it has led us what is the purpose of the PGDM program per se. So first part is we have to redefine as to what is the purpose we got about the PGDM or MBA program. And then another was about what we refers to, if we have the purpose well defined, then how we should try to position that program in the market, because ultimately this has to be sold, I think, to the market and the business constituent which is going to be there. And third thing was that we have to concern with the program design per se. So purpose was important. We were also concerned with positioning of the program, and we were also concerned about how the program design should be there. So this was the first task which we had in mind. I'm sure people like us in the academic field and my faculty colleagues, dean and directors and students, those who are aware, we are in the 21st century, and we were struggling with what we refer to Industrial Revolution 4.0. And it came. In fact, we were so bothered. We were wrestling with what is that we should be doing under Industrial Revolution 4.0 as an educationist. So we were trying to do that. And there were different skills needed, and there were World Economic Forum came out with a number of skills which were there, which need to be developed among the students and get to do that. And then suddenly we realized we have got another big crisis on our head, and that is called COVID-19. I did not get into the detail of it. I think this we are on the crossroads, you know it. And since COVID-19 has come, we have now come to a situation where Industrial Revolution, I think it's already 4, which is what we were struggling with. Now, COVID-19 has really accelerated the pace, where the change in if not the change, a rethinking, reimagining the purpose, the positioning, the course design has really to take place in the program. And that is what we thought it. Why don't we try to focus, therefore, on what we refers to the curriculum development? What is that we should have it? The MBA, the management education curriculum, can we redesign it in concern with post-COVID-19 era? I'm sure you will agree, and I'll take a few minutes more. COVID-19 era will going to end soon. When it is going to be there, we do not know. but is going to be soon, because any crisis has to come to an end someday or another. So once it is over, then we have to get ready for maybe the future. And that is what our task is today. That can we have our own experts thinking, our own thinking put together and see how the curriculum can be designed, what type of, what we refers to, and I'm sure our colleagues, they are all okay with what we say knowledge, skills and attitude framework, which is there, what type of knowledge we should try to part with the students, and what type of skills we should have it, what type of attitude we should have it. And finally, I must say that COVID-19, in fact, has given us, I'm sure you know it, it has given us a depression, it is anxiety, it has given us unemployment, it has given us a laying off of the people. I think there's an environment which is very, very difficult. We never thought we will be having in our lifetimes. If that is being the case, how should they cope up with this sort of a thing? It's a very uncertain environment which is there. So as a faculty, I feel, and I'm sure every one of us feel it, that how our students, we should try really to develop so that in case any of situation comes, we get into that. So that was the focus, in fact, when we thought we should try to have a curriculum redesigning of the PGDM MBA program. So this was mainly to see from these point of view as to what we should be having it. So I will not be taking much time, but I thought I should tell you the background. And since we have two experts with us, and I'll be requesting Mr. Shastri to begin with, in case he gives the industry background as to how should they look at, in fact, in the context of industrial revolution, also in the context of it, and what as a faculty in business school we should be doing indeed. So that is what we look for it. Sir, Shastri sir, please share with you. Over to you. Sir, आवाज is not clear. आवाज कम आ रही है.
Mute myself. Am I clear now?
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. So I must compliment the organizers for selecting this topic, because in whichever field of life we are working, we are part of an organization, whether it is university or a factory or a shop or a hospital. Ultimately, it is the people who matter the most, and any entity has to exist in its business environment. And environment, it is just as it is. You can't change it. You have the political environment, you have the economic environment, you have regulatory environment, and so on. So the winner is only one who is able to be agile enough to adjust with the rapidly occurring changes in the environment around. And therefore, when we talk of any organization, it is the need for right kind of people who have the right knowledge, skills, and attitude. And now, coming straight to today's context, and everybody has been saying, we are listening from the childhood, that the only thing which is constant in this world is change. We have been listening a lot about the VUCA environment, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, that it has become a new normal. And this COVID crisis has proven it once again. So the unforeseen or unpredictable crisis that have often extreme consequences, and the outbreak of COVID-19, it is unprecedented, and its spread across the globe has introduced a kind of uncertainty, as Professor Sharma was also mentioning about anxiety in the minds of the people. So now we know all these things. Today we are focused, having focused discussion, and my focus will be on the interface between industry and academia, having worked for oil and gas industry for almost 36 years, and also having been in the learning and development profession for more than 2 decades. Now I know both the sides, how each one looks at the other one. So there is a need for integration of the two. So let us talk of the current situation. In India's higher education system, about more than 4 lakh engineers and over 25 lakh university graduates are coming out every year. The number may be much more, because the data which I collected from the source, that was almost an year old. there are almost 50 lakh students out of the lot which I mentioned who who remain unemployed. And the multinational companies find that only about 25% of the Indian engineers and the management graduates are really employable in terms of their expectations. So therefore, a productive interface between academia and industry in the present times of knowledge economy is of critical importance, particularly with the unprecedented and unimaginable changes occurring all over the world. So the industry academia interface basically emphasizes on transfer of knowledge, experience and technology to each other. And as far as any academic institution is concerned, the most important parameter of success is its ability to offer corporate interface for its students, which enhances their practical knowledge to face the corporate world. Now let us talk certain practical things. I have, as Professor Sharma told, I have a lot of experience in talent acquisition. I have been visiting various campuses, IIMs, IITs, and so on, NITs also. And based on a scientific survey conducted by a reputed agency, the results reveal that the industry has the highest expectation from the newly hired executives in the areas of attitude, skills, and knowledge. That is the order, and there is no harm in making a general statement that in industry we hire people for attitude and train them for the skills. Because if somebody is lacking knowledge, नॉलेज कम है मैं उसको ट्रेनिंग दे दूंगा पढ़ा दूंगा स्किल की कमी है if someone is lacking in skills, the industry can always afford an opportunity to that individual to hone the skills, but it is the attitude which matters most, and perhaps that is the most difficult thing to work upon. So therefore it is the responsibility of the institutions, the faculty, and the students themselves also to shape up their own attitude so that they become successful in life. Today only I was, now everyone has WhatsApp in their mobile. So today I come across a very good quote. It says that grades are not indicators of intelligence and age is not indicators of maturity. So that's how it is. We can't say that somebody has gray hairs and therefore he or she is mature enough, and vice versa. So now to sum up, what we look for the students coming from colleges or professional, academic institutions is positive attitude, commitment, dedication, self-discipline, and self-motivation. The greatest problem as practicing manager I find is lack of ownership. People think that let us, पहली बात तो वो दूर भागते हैं, जिम्मेदारी सौंपोगे तो भागते हैं, और सौंप भी दी तो ओन नहीं करेंगे. They will say, okay sir, you asked me to do this, I have done it. They will never try to look beyond or think beyond. So the sense of ownership that cannot be taught in any school of the world. It has to come from within, and it has to be, and it gets shaped only on the basis of how you have been brought up. And bringing up includes the academic institution also. So therefore, it is the expectation of the industry from academia to pay attention to these aspects also, apart from providing the theoretical input. Then an aptitude and willingness to learn. Another common problem is, साहब ये काम तो हमने पहले कभी किया नहीं. अरे भैया नहीं किया तो सीखो ना. आज भी हम सीखते हैं. ठीक है, मेरी उम्र अभी 60 साल की होने वाली है. आज भी मैं पढ़ता हूँ. आज भी मुझे अगर वेबिनार में बोलना है तो मैं कुछ थोड़ा बहुत प्रिपेयर तो करूँगा ना, ऐसा रॉ हैंड होके तो बैठ नहीं जाऊँगा. So one has to keep learning. That kind of attitude is lacking in the new generation. That is what I am observing, and that is an area where the academic institutions need to pay attention to. Then another key factor is strong analytical listening and communication skills. Our problem is that all of us want to speak, speak, speak. We do not want to listen. So being a good listener is also a very important quality at all levels, not only at the level of the freshers, but also at the senior leadership. If a leader doesn't listen to his team, how then he is no longer a good leader. As per me, he doesn't fit into the definition of leadership. And similarly, the newcomers, when they are in the learning stage of their career, they must be open. They should listen. On the contrary, वो हम भी जब जवान थे, या कहते हैं ना सास भी कभी बहू थी, एक जनरल टेंडेंसी होती है कॉलेज में, अरे यार वो प्रोफेसर एक्स तो बेवकूफ़ है, बड़ा आराम से ऐसे रिमार्क हम लोग पास करते हैं, उसको कुछ नहीं आता। अरे भाई ठीक है, अगर तुम्हें उससे ज़्यादा आता है तो तुम जाके पढ़ा दो, या तुम्हारे मैनेजर को नहीं
शास्त्री साहब,
आता।
एक्सक्यूज मी,
यस
शास्त्री
सर।
साहब एक्सक्यूज मी, थोड़ा वॉल्यूम बढ़ा दीजिएगा प्लीज, देयर इज सम रिक्वेस्ट आर कमिंग।
Okay,
प्लीज,
I have come closer to the laptop. Is it
you
better
come
now?
to the closest to the
Yeah, because I
no, no,
think there is
thank you.
some problem with the machine, but is it okay now? Am I audible?
I think it's better.
Okay, okay. So I was talking about the traits which we look for in the students when we hire the people for companies jobs. And last but not the least, out of the important ones is team play and collaboration. The problem in most of the areas of life, whether it is university, whether it is industry, whether it is any other organization, everyone tries to take that I have done it. And that is the problem. Everywhere I. If we start learning we, then most of the problems will disappear. So team play and collaboration is a very important quality which we look for in the new graduates, because without that, no good organization can survive and grow. And to substantiate what I have said just now, I will quote the results of a survey that was conducted with around 70 organizations and discussed with more than 100 plus individuals. So the findings were there are certain parameters like aptitude and willingness to learn. When the industries were asked, 93% of the industries said that yes, this is the most important parameter. And when mapping was done against the same parameter with regard to actual performance level of the fresh graduates, it was only 47%. That means there was a gap of almost 46% between the expectation and the actual performance as far as aptitude and willingness to learn is concerned. Second parameter was creativity. Expectation was at the level of 81% and actual was only 27%. That means a gap of 54%. And commitment and dedication, a gap of 57%. Self-motivation, gap of 55%. Ethical behavior 45%. So this means that there are serious gaps between the expectations of the industry and the real performance of the fresh graduates. So therefore, self-discipline, self-motivation, commitment and dedication, these are the three most important areas where we need to focus our attention while we are working in academic institutions and shaping the future of the students. Then another set of skills, again the same survey I am referring to, they focused about analytical skills. Industry expectation was at the level of 91% and the actual was only around 30%. Similarly, communication skills. Actually, many of the problems in this world, whether it is personal level or organizational level, it is because of communication gap. And from my experience, I have found that people may be good, but they are not able to express themselves. They do not possess the verbal communication skills. They are lacking in the written communication skills. So this is yet another. Preparing a PowerPoint presentation is not enough. It is how you put your perspective so that it is understood in the same manner in which you intend by the receiver. That is the objective of communication. So whether it is verbal or written, that is an area where we need to work upon. Teamwork and collaboration I have also already mentioned. And conflict resolution is also one of the areas in which a gap of almost 57% was observed as per this survey. So now I will quickly touch upon the areas of concern with regard to the industries, the faculty, and the institutions. This is how I would like to keep my talk short, because again, in this world, everybody wants to speak, not to listen too much. So it is better if somebody wants to be a good speaker, he should be short enough. So the area of concern for institution, number one, there is too much disparity among the institutions, and that happens because the selection criteria of the candidates is not uniform all across. Then basic curricula are same, but the outcome is different. Syllabus may be same, but the institution does make a difference. That's why people run for institution X or Y or Z. And finally, as per the industry experience, the knowledge and skills imparted outside tier 1 institutes, that is IIMs and IITs, were neither adequate nor fully relevant as per the survey which I have referred to. Then, secondly, area of concern for faculty members. Number one is lack of understanding for industry specific content. The problem is that I don't blame any faculty, but as a person having worked in both the areas, suppose if I am talking of a gas turbine, I am a mechanical engineer by education. If I am teaching the subject of gas turbine in an engineering college, and if I have not seen gas turbine physically, how will I be able to explain the intricacies? So it is better if a faculty has exposure to industry also, then he or she can be more effective in preparing the students for future. Second is lack of constant learning and updating. लोगों के वो 25 साल पुराने नोट्स ही चलते रहते हैं, उसको लेके वो अपना करियर गुजार देते हैं, which is not a good practice and which is no longer possible in today's world, because students are much more aware. So therefore, if a faculty has to survive, he or she has to keep himself or herself updated. Then most of the faculty members are not conversant with practical knowledge. They are overly focused on theoretical knowledge, and they also do not make adequate use of the case methodology. Because if try to teach any concept with the help of a case, it is more effective and more impacting, and it is more easier to understand and appreciate by the audience. So that is why this case methodology has its own importance. Then if we talk of industries, industry has also do a lot. So industries have to focus on the scientific learning and development programs like the induction training programs, refresher training programs, etc. And I'm very happy to tell you that in public sector undertakings, and in particular in my company, that is GAIL India Limited, uh, the Learning and Development Institute exclusively is existing, and we have a lot of emphasis on the onboarding program. We have come out with institutional framework for mentoring of the newly inducted people and so on. That is an investment for us. We never consider it as an expenditure. So that is our perspective, and which needs to be adopted by most of the industries. Then secondly, industries have to focus on an environment for providing autonomy, flexibility, and culture for encouragement. Because when the young blood comes into our organization, we need to be flexible enough to allow them to do certain experiments. If everything is governed by rule, then there is no room for innovation and creativity, and that is why many of the young people get frustrated and they leave the organization. Then yet another thing is reward and recognition mechanism. वो कहते हैं ना, सरकारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में गधे घोड़े सब बराबर है. So therefore there is a need for the organization to adopt a very clear cut policy with regard to reward and recognition mechanism. Then there has to be a transparency on what you expect from MBA or engineering graduate. Once the expectations are clear, then at least the incumbent can mold himself or herself according to the need. But if if the employer himself is not clear in expectation, then it is not a fair game. And finally, there has to be management of expectations on both the sides. And finally, but but the most important areas of concern with regard to students, they have unrealistic expectation. They always focus on package. मुझे तो साहब 15 लाख का पैकेज मिला 10 का, so that is not a correct thing. Then the perception disorder. Students are not consumers. They have to reorient their own perception. Degree alone is sufficient to get me a job. That's how they think, but that is not the license to get a job. And they always look for high salary and white collar jobs. No engineer nowadays wants to dirty his or her hands. काले तेल में हाथ डुबो के जब काम करते हैं तब आपको पता चलता है कि जिंदगी की हकीकत क्या है, और तब जाके आदमी सीढ़ियाँ चढ़ता है. So that is one thing. So now coming to the redesign of curriculum. Till now we talked about the realities of life, and now post-COVID we have to think ahead. So post-COVID world, as we know, it will unfold a new normal, and therefore we have to look at the education system and the management education curriculum from a fresh perspective. And as we all know, it is perhaps for the first time ever that academics will have to tweak courses in real time to reflect the changing reality of the situation outside the campus. And nearly all subjects taught in an MBA program, from economics and strategy to human resources and supply chains, will require review and redesign. And while doing so, one has to include the lessons in subjects like macroeconomics, financial markets, strategic management, marketing, and HR. And say, for example, the macroeconomics course could include examples like the Supreme Court's capping of COVID-19 testing, or uh, including investments in public health facilities to be discussed as part of investment in public goods. And from HR perspective also, the, the discipline to which I belong, it will be interesting to study how HR has to align itself in the evolving situation due to the pandemic. The curriculum in HR will have to focus on how workplaces and their dynamics are changing quickly. Also, there is a need to include research-based contents like predictive models, effect on mental well-being, best practices of various stakeholders like people, organization, and countries. And finally, it is also a time for reflection on how the nature of business itself, impacts everything. We have to teach students that business is not uh, what is normal alone. It is also extraordinary situations like natural disasters and epidemics. And there will be now greater focus on subjects like localism, sustainability, and disaster management, etc. So, and finally, I would
So
like to
maybe
conclude.
now, Shastri sir, we listen to
Yes,
Dr. Sharma also.
30 seconds. 30 seconds
Uh,
only. I am concluding.
all right,
So,
all right.
having said all these things, we know that learning is a continuous and lifelong process, and therefore the lessons from COVID-19 will have to be dynamic. And while the management education curricula may include the lessons based on what has been experienced so far, such content would be more precise and conclusive only after we have conquered the academic pandemic, and the management lessons are done only after arriving at success or failure. And my message is very clear. We have to be optimistic. We should not get depressed. And as in the Indian philosophy, it is said चरई वेती, or in the film song, जीवन चलने का नाम चलते रहो सुबह शाम. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shastri sir. I think so nicely, very comprehensively you mentioned all this. Now, may I request Dr. Sushil Sharma to just highlight as to how you get into the redesigning of the course curriculum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. First of all, I'm grateful to you, the AIMS and the organizing team to make me a part of this webinar. This has given me an opportunity to connect with lots of my friends in India. So thank you for that.
I hope volume is all right with everyone.
Yes.
Right.
I'm also excited and pleased to listen Shastri ji. He made a wonderful remarks, but he also scared me. I think if I have to sum up his speech, what he mentioned is attitude matters. So what he said was that you may have lots of expertise, you have lots of skills, you have lots of knowledge, but end of the day, it may be the attitude which matters. He also scared me on the other side. He said that you may have made a presentation, PowerPoint slides, but unless you organize your thoughts, that PowerPoint slides will not help. And actually, I came with a PowerPoint slides presentation. So now I'm not going to use PowerPoint slides as a presentation because he already scared me. It matters how you organize. Anyways, it's kidding now. So it's a, as I said, it's a post-COVID-19 has created a unique situation for everyone in the world. There is not a single individual or an organization which has not been impacted by this with the COVID-19. And we are all trying to struggle first to cope up with, and secondly to rethink about our curriculum, rethink about strategies, rethink about the whole academia. So I will bring some of the important points. I think I may have around half an hour time or 20 minutes time. So I'll try to sum up my thoughts in 20 minutes time. And if there is a few minutes for taking up some question, I'll be happy to take those questions. So what is happening? There is already a tremendous pressure going on about challenging the higher education model, how we are delivering the education in higher education. In US context, there are tremendous decrease in enrollment. I'm sure it may have some impact in Indian side too, but here every university is fighting for coping up with having enrollments or sufficient enrollments for the viability of the various programs. They're also struggling that a lot of education technologies, they are coming up so fast. How to introduce them into these curriculums, how to embed them into curriculum, because some of the non-education institutions are using them tremendously. So that's another kind of a challenge which universities are facing with. There's also cultural shift. This Gen Z students, their expectations are very different, how they want to be taught. You know, Shastri ji was mentioning that today's students are different. We all agree, because this Gen Z students, the way they receive instruction, the way they expect this whole curriculum is much different than when we all went through this curriculum, when we all went through our education. So that's another pressure which is coming to the higher education model. The job landscape, Shastri ji was mentioning that we may be preparing we are teaching to the students for the job which has not been there yet. By the time students graduate from these programs, the job landscape may have been completely changed. And we should be cognizant of that fact too. There is also a lot of discussion going on that whether we would like to have skills over degrees. In fact, that's another threat to higher education model. Some of the terminologies used are competency-based education or skills over degree. I mean, do you need the diplomas or do you need the people well prepared to do the jobs? And that's another challenge which is there for the higher education model. As you know, the learning and teaching landscape has completely changed in last 10 to 15 years. There was no Khan Academy 15, 20 years back. There was no MOOCs, there was no edX, there was no Coursera. There was none of these institutions existed. And as you know, that most of these are creating a challenge to our institutions. So let me focus only on three things. How the teachers have changed, the teacher's role have changed, how the students or the learners' profile have changed, and how the curriculums are required to change. And then I sum up my observation. So as you know, in fact, being an associate dean, I've been hiring the new faculty for last 10 years. And suddenly those expectations of teachers, the way we used to hire 10 years back, have changed. First, we want the teacher now to be well-versed with the technology. And when I say well-versed with the technology, it basically means to integrate all the latest technologies into their curriculum, into their class, which basically puts additional pressure. These young PhDs coming from the institution, not only they need to be expert in their own areas, but they need to be expert in the technology. So what we call media literacy, technology literacy has become an additional component of any faculty member who's looking for a job. The second is that we are thinking that there was a time when my professor used to be only one source of knowledge, and his notes were only one source of knowledge. Today, things have changed. Today, you could be a part of what we call community of practice, which means, and I'm sure the AIMS must be looking at it, there could be such a large body can think of, bring some 50 best professors of each subject area, and let them pool their knowledge, let them pool their best practices, exercises, assignments, exams into one place. Maybe there is some kind of exchange and one can use those best practices to their institutions. So the community of practice has become order of the day. No more a single source or instructor is supposed to teach from one book or one note. And students are expecting to bring the best of the knowledge from anywhere in the world. So the expectation is that the faculty members should also be well versed, not only with the technology, but they should have intent to collaborate. They should have intent to become a part of community of practice. Third thing, which to some extent Shastri ji was highlighting, we don't want students to learn from the books and that's the only knowledge when they get out of the college. We want them to also have some hands-on on real life problems while they're at the college. In fact, that's the premium which every organization, every employer is looking for. I remember I was a placement chair in IIM for 2 years. And I used to interact with 400-500 different companies when they used to come to recruit to campus. And in successive years, I used to ask what is their input or feedback for us. And they used to tell us that your students are great in solving, knowledge-wise. But the two areas where they lack, they have no idea about the real life problems. They sit on the desk and say, give me the problem and I'll solve it. But their attitudes are not the one which Shastri ji was asking, which matters a lot. The team building, and the team playing, the positiveness, bringing the energy, ownership. So all those things are also needs to be to be taught by the instructor. So the implications are when I design my class, I don't design just because what is given in the textbook or publisher has given me the slides and I'm going to use and just read those slides. I'm going to think of each chapter, what are the practical side, the insight which we can take and how they can be applied in real world situation. And can I build some of those exercises in terms of the project, in terms of the assignment, so that they are close to what they are going to do after they graduate from the school. So that is another side. In fact, in India, when I started my career in IIM systems, I used to think that teacher's role is what to teach. I never concentrated in the first few years of my job or academia, how to teach. I never thought of that. And how to teach is very important. What would be the most effective way to teach so that the knowledge is transferred. You know, I never thought that there may be so much role team playing, team projects could do. There was so much, you know, the case-based is one of the most abused word which is used around the world. I also have written a couple of cases which are used, you know, which are available through Harvard Publishing and others. But that's most abused words. I remember anybody and everybody says the IIMs are differentiated from other institutions because they use case-based. Whether it's a case-based or whether it's a discussion-based pedagogy, the whole idea is that it tries to simulate the real world situation into a class environment, and where students have a chance to work on it and act as if like a real decision makers. If we can provide some of those situations through those projects, whether it's a discussion based or use the case based, great. And that's what industry is looking for. As I mentioned, industry is not looking for somebody who come with a 4.0 GPA or 10 out of 10 GPA and great academicians, but have those problems: attitude, team building, project handling, how to even handle your subordinate, how to handle your bosses. This is a huge insight which also needs to be brought it into the curriculum in some fashion. And that's also expectation from the teacher that each of their classes, some of these insights should also be built in. Now look at the other side. So this was the teacher side of view. The other side, on the learner side of it, here in US, there are two new kinds of learners. One, Gen Z, another, the one who are coming at the late 40s or late 50s, coming back to the school. And so we have a different kind of demographics. Now, if you have students who have worked in industry for 20 years, coming back to instruction, their expectations are different than the Gen Z. And as an instructor, my role is to cater to both the learning styles. So you have to provide this, what we call personalized or customized instruction. So you have to be more adaptable. I do one interesting thing. I go first day in my class and I ask students, each one, that in the second session when they come back, they should come with the 5 questions which they think are takeaway from this class. Whatever 5 questions. And those could be, they can learn from their friends, their family. What should be the takeaway from this class? And what are the different questions you want to be answered and addressed in this class? And when they come back, in a typical class of 30, 40 students, I used to have like 150 to 200 questions. My first task is, that becomes a valid input for me to redesign or adapt into my existing course design, existing syllabi. So I used to now prepare these answers for these 200 questions and create what we call knowledge repository. And that knowledge repository, I make it available to all the students, which is going to be there throughout the course. In one way, I have at least taken care of those 5 takeaways from each student. And not only those 5 takeaways of individual, but 5 takeaways of others, which has added a huge advantage to the student. And this is on top of it, what I thought could be the agenda for the class. So as I was mentioning, that the students' profiles have changed, demographics have changed. So as on one hand, the professor have to make adjustments for personalized instruction or different style, learning style instruction, students are also expecting those as part of their curriculum. Technology literacy is one of the major part. As I said, that when I go in a class, I see that when they go in the real world, they may be developing YouTube videos. They may be using multimedia. They may be using Snagit. They may be using Camtasia. Because think of this situation. Today, if I want to teach student, and many of these MOOCs and edX classes, they are not dealing with 40, 50 students. They are dealing with a student 250,000. Look at any of the edX course from MIT, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia. In each of their class, instructors are teaching 500,000 students worldwide. So now they have to gear up for, they cannot communicate just through a PowerPoint slides. Now they have to embed different multimedia formats into their class so that effectively it could be animation. And as you know, visual learning is the most effective learning. So they are trying to build up their, apart from their voiceover, some slides, they're trying to build various technologies into a class, which also could be a part of their real life situations when they go to the jobs. So that is another big change that learners are expecting and teachers have to deliver. Let's look at the classroom side.
Professor Sharma, can you, your voice, please? I think there seems to be still, I think, some of the people mentioning.
Okay.
Volume little high.
Yes, surely. Let me try to be a little louder. So the point I was highlighting some of the unique characteristics that we are looking into, the profile of teachers, and some of the unique characteristics what our newer learners or the students have nowadays and what their expectations are. Let me also dwell a little bit upon the new classrooms. What are the new classrooms? The very first new classroom is that it's a global classrooms. In fact, many of my classes here, I have students who I have never met. It was a very interesting experience. I was in Kabul 3-4 years back for a project. And there I met two students. One day they came to see me and they said they have been in my class. And I never knew that because it was all part of the online learning. So when you think of a new classroom, the learning spaces have changed. They are no more a single class sitting in face-to-face situation. There may be some students in the classroom. In fact, our MBA program have a mix of students. There are few on campus and there are many who are off campus. So in some days, in some class when I go, there's none in the class and I'm delivering a lecture and I'm also managing the technology. So in the class, in the virtual classroom, I'm focusing on slide on one hand, on me, the camera on another hand. And if there is a third media which I'm using it, and there's non-student in the class and speaking to empty chairs, and students are on synchronously receiving these instructions. So in between, I'm also attending some of the questions that I'm receiving. So the definition of a classroom have changed. That's one point which I wanted to make. Technology has to be very highly integrated, as I was making a point. Role of teacher have changed. So it is more like facilitator. When I go in a class, it was interesting in the beginning, maybe 10 years back, when we here in US universities started allowing students to bring their laptop to the classrooms. And initially, all of us had fears that if they have these laptops or the phones, they may be playing with it and they're not only getting disturbed, they're not receiving the instruction. It will also disturb the professors. So I started doing a little experiment. So I said, oh, you are all welcome to bring your gadgets or high-techs in the classrooms. So one day I wanted to observe what they are doing. So while I was delivering the class, and let's assume I was saying databases, designs, blah, blah, blah. The students in the back, I went there and started sneaking into what they're looking at. They were trying to validate my statement through those abundant internet resources. And then some student will say, Professor, you made a point. However, you didn't mention this. And I'm thinking, this is a smart student. He already knows. No, he immediately Googled it. He immediately found it. And he immediately is trying to provide a valid feedback for the benefit of the rest. So the students are no more recipient. Students are co-constructor of a knowledge. In fact, constructivism, the theory, is very much in place nowadays because you don't want students to be a passive recipients. You want them to be a co-constructor of a knowledge, and your role has changed to be more like facilitator, enabler. You can point them to all those resources which matters for the effective learning or effective learning outcomes, source for that that information. My daughter, she was doing a graduate program, and she used to ask me some question, and I would always say, give me an hour and I'll get back to you. And that hour I used to go on these resources, used to learn from there. And many times, let me also mention, I'm a student in many of these edX classes, and particularly in those subject area where I'm teaching. I want to learn from others how they are teaching, how my classes could be more effective. So I used to provide all the answers to my daughter after learning, which I initially didn't have that kind of knowledge. So the classroom environment has completely been changed. They are also, and the students are also becoming much more active and demanding, which is good. Sometimes some of my colleagues says that students, because they are very active, that's not good. I say this is good, because with that pressure, you are learning yourself. You know that you would be questioned. You know there could be a demand which forces you to learn in advance, which is very good. Let me just now talk about some of the areas which Shastri was expressing. Attitude matters. So what happened was that here in business schools in US, as you know, that placement is always a question for every business school. And as Shastri was giving some statistics that 45% students are not employable, or some other statistics he was sharing. And he was also mentioning why they are not employable. And interestingly, if you look at the underneath the reasons, one of the main reasons is some of the way we want our students to perform in their interviews, in their presentation, we never teach them in the class. We never teach them in the curriculum. So soft skill, I cannot agree more with Dr. Rana or with Shastri when they were mentioning that soft skill matters a lot. So realizing this, I, in my capacity in the institution, designed a course which is delivered 3 years. So each year there is 1 credit hour. And this is only for how to interview, how to present yourself, how to build your branding on LinkedIn, how to use the social media effectively, how to handle the emails, how to respond to the emails, how courteous you could be. The entire 3 credit hour course for 3 years. And this is right for the undergraduate to the graduate. And I tell you, our students' employability has gone from 60% to 90%. They are much more confident. They can handle the question. And you know that at times the employers also want to do some what we call stress interviews. And in stress situations, how to handle those stress situations. So if we are not making them as part of the curriculum, then what is the use of these degrees and diplomas? These are just papers. So we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we are preparing students for the real life world. I think, the most institutions do a great job in what we call hard skills or the subject area knowledge. I think in my own personal experience, I have taught in 8 to 10 different countries. The Indian students are the wonderful in terms of their subject knowledge. They are in hard skill, they are great, but they don't perform well. And they are not the only one. Even the other students don't perform well, what we call in soft skill and personal skills. And they always, it's like, I remember a couple of my great students from India when they come, and when I assign them some project and assignment, and they are the first one who come and ask me, sir, give us some kind of a sample. Who got the A grade last year? Do you have any sample for that? And they're ready to match that sample. And the American students say they believe in creating the samples. So they are not trying to match anyone. They don't want to follow any sample which has already been created by somebody else. They want to go beyond or their own origination. And that's the one part again, creativity, innovation, which again has to be part of the curriculum. When I say part of the curriculum repeatedly, what it means is either some of this could be an independent course or this could be repeated across the many courses. In fact, that drives me to come to the most important part, which is called learning outcomes. Most of the time, most business schools do not think of having the learning outcomes well stated in their curriculum. So unless you have those learning outcome stated, we don't know what we are producing. In fact, when I go to some of my friends, meeting my friends in Indian institution, they say we have a great institution, great student. So I said, okay, let me just ask you, what are the various learning outcomes of your MBA program? They said, what do you mean? We have a student who has got 10 out of 10. So no, what are the learning outcomes? What did you want your students to go with as a takeaway after they graduate? And they are not able to spell out. I said, is it communication? Is it a global awareness? Is it a leadership skill? It is a decision making? Okay, let's assume these are the learning outcomes. Where did you collect the data? Where did you taught them where did you teach them? And finally, how did you assess it? And unless we do this, there's no way to measure the quality of the student just by getting there, as Shastri was saying, just for knowledge and degrees doesn't matter. You need a little bit more. So, and also, as you know, that is a very helpful for accreditation purposes, because that's where you, the accrediting body wants to know that you have a continuous improvement based on the learning outcomes that you have set for yourself. So some of the last 2 minutes, since there's a constraint of time, I would like to just sum it up by saying, think of these, which I'm leaving some ideas. Data science looks like a scientific subject, but on the business side, analytics is the business subject. Various form of business analytics programs you have to bring as early as possible as part of your curriculum. Supply chain analytics, health analytics, media analytics, right? All these you have to again introduce as additional courses, and that may be some of the old courses which are no more valid needs to go away. It doesn't matter whether they were there 10 years or 20 years. So business analytics, machine learning. Now machine learning on one hand is a science subject, but on other hand, this is a business subject. How the students would be using some of the machine learning tools for their jobs. So some of these, and entrepreneurship and corporate innovations. I see not many curriculums in India have this entrepreneurship as a focus. Entrepreneurship does not mean you are producing the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are also the people who are for corporate innovations. These are the people who try to bring change in corporation. And that's what Shastri was talking about, that you need some of these new skills into the organization, which at some point in time we never thought of. I am also leaving a thought that every business school should have some of these software tools embedded into their program. Which are those? Excel. Now Excel looks like, oh, this is a very simple one. Everyone knows. No. Excel to the full extent, 99% of the organizations do a lot of those permutation combination of their analysis using Excel spreadsheet. Your students should be 100% well-versed. Excel sheets are also used for regression tools, also used with SAS, also used with R, also used with Tableau. And these are the new R and Tableau are the new software tools used for data mining, used for predictive analysis, analytics. So all these have to become part sooner or later. The earlier you make the part of your curriculum, the better you would be. There are some proprietary license of SAS. There are proprietary license of SAP, there are proprietary license of Oracle Analytics. If you can afford to, do it. But these, the ones which I mentioned, are Tableau, many of them are freely available. It's just matter of you making a part of your curriculum and the faculty members taking a lead to introduce them. So these are the changes. So in the end, let me just share one thing, that when you think of a curriculum, think bygone is bygone. I'm thinking now today, if I have to create a student for tomorrow's job, let's redesign our curriculum. Have a new definition of a classroom, have a new definition of a teacher, have a new definition of a learner. Having all that integrated into one, let's put all hands together to create a new curriculum. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this stage. I will make my slides available through Dr. Sharma and Ames, and I'll be happy to share with others. There were many more, but Shastriji said, don't use the PowerPoint slides. I'm just kidding.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. I think it's a very valid point. And I think there are a few things, a few questions really came up. This was about some of the students mentioning also that they have been very comfortable with face-to-face teaching. Now it is online teaching, how to be comfortable, in fact, in that situation. So your response.
Very good point. But again, that, you know, if you ask this population of these students who are asking face-to-face, it is decreasing every year. As I said, in my class of 250 students, I have 30 on campus and majority outside. So as a teacher, I have accustomed myself and they have accustomed, because now with these virtual tools available, I'm available to their calls anytime with a Zoom meeting or any of these meetings. So it does not give them any disadvantage if they are not in the face-to-face situations. I know that there's one generation which is finding difficult to adjust to this virtual mode, but there's another generation coming which is preferring to this virtual mode. So, and soon with the COVID-19 kind of situation, how many of us we thought that we would meet in this webinar? And I'm looking at the number there, 261 right now at listening to me. How many times we could think of this situation, right? And as I said, many of the edX and Coursera classes you yourself can experience. Sign up, it's a free registration. And in your class, there are 500,000 people. And they are getting the best education, same way as they could have got it sitting in a class. So I can understand this some kind of a preference, but I think those comfort zones, those shackles will be broken soon.
May I add something?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah. See, if there is a will, there is a way. Yes, we do.
Sir, loudly, little, I think, little loudly.
Yeah. We do agree that this traditional method of classroom or face-to-face interaction between teacher and the student is no longer possible. But that is the beauty of the human being. We have to adapt to the changing circumstances. Let me give the example of my own company. In India, in the public sector undertakings, this work from home was never ever thought. But after this COVID-19 coming over, now we are working from home. Even now, today is a working day for me, and I am sitting at home and doing my office job as well as participating in this webinar as well. This is one thing. And if we go back to the old times also, if the point is your keenness to learn. This 𝗥𝗲𝗃𝗃 was very keen to learn the archery, but Dronacharya refused to teach him. So he just got an idol of Dronacharya and learned archery. So whether it is virtual mode or face to face, it doesn't matter. If you are having genuine quest to learn, you will learn by whatever means. And today's reality is that face-to-face interaction is no more possible. So let us adopt to that kind of situation as quickly as we can. And of course, whenever the situation becomes normal, we can always go back to the old normal. That's how the life goes.
Thank you very much, Shastriji. I think the questions were more in terms of these, how this online teaching, the interaction that we had it. I'm sure there have been limitations, and this is a very challenging area because this is to the faculty and also to the students too, because we are accustomed to a certain situation. And let us also frankly admit that faculty also, even in India, not many were very good at using this online, in fact, earlier. But COVID-19 has forced us to learn those platforms, and how to use them. And now I think mostly we are comfortable. And that is what seems to be there. Business school faculty is very agile. They are very adaptable. And I think they are able to learn. I'm sure they are able to do it. Students will also learn, I'm sure, because this is a new order of the day in any way. So I'm sure they will accustom to getting into that part. Very nice, sir. I think since we are coming to an end of the session and there were questions of this type only, I must summarize, in fact, what has been really said, because our topic remains our redesigning the course curriculum. And for the benefit of those, we just for summarize, we were talking about the knowledge, skills, and attitude part. According to Mr. Shastri, attitude is very important. In fact, we all know it. Every practitioner, even Dr. Sharma really highlighted when he was a placement chair, that I think it is the people, industry hire for attitude. And of course, knowledge and skills, they can always develop or impart. In fact, when a student is already there in the industry. So that way, attitude makes a difference. I think that is a very important and takeaway point for us. And also, of course, Mr. Shastri was mentioning about the self-discipline, lack of ownership, which students do not have. Again, attitudinal issues, which is what I think students need to be there. And one of the comments came from in the chat box that I think attitude is very difficult, that within a year or two, you develop it. I think it comes over a period of time, right from the beginning, as to how students being, they are in the family and all that. I mean, there are a lot of factors which really affect, and the society in general, and that sort of a thing which really happens. So I think, but these are the constraints. And as a teacher, you have really to be really facing all this. Very important. So another thing, which is what we were talking, is about the contents part. And there's what Dr. Sharma was mentioning. And there is some people mentioning that we have not got into this. No, I think we were talking about the COVID-19 era, which is the situation which is going to take place, wherein we need to have certain courses, we have to relook at it. For example, Dr. Sharma mentioned about the data science, which is said to be probably a science subject. But I think if you look at it from the business viewpoint, I think that is a subject which is more of analytical part. And that is what makes a sense to us as a faculty and also to the business school. So for the faculty, those who are looking for redesigning the course curriculum, we have the core courses in the first year, and we have elective courses in the second year. I think somewhere we need really to get into those subjects which are really in demand, which are needed. For example, as Dr. Sharma mentioned, machine learning is what we really have to get into. And some of those tools and techniques, Excel, we have been using. In fact, it's so easily said, Excel spreadsheet, we are using it. But I think how much we use it. I remember in the accounting and finance courses, I think we got Excel sheet being taught separately and accounting and finance analysis being done separately. Now, can we merge it into two and then try to see as to how this can be done? So those type of pedagogical, changes which we have to get into. I think this is for those also, that we are looking of not merely the change totally about what is the, what we say the courses curriculum is going to be there, but also the pedagogy part. How really we should try to integrate the latest thinking which is happening, R for that matter, Tableau for that matter. Now, all these have to be taught to the students. Not that our faculty colleagues, those who are attending here, they are not aware of it. Only thing is they have to execute and implement, in fact, in the right earnest. I must say, and this is what I humble plea is, many times we want to add courses when we try to redesign the course curriculum, in fact, the program curriculum. We don't delete the courses. We have to delete some of the courses which are of no use at all, or they are easily available for that matter, or they are available on different platforms. For example, we got a Coursera, we got a MOOC, and I think we can always say to students that you can really take those courses from there. And then we can really try to get on those courses like these, which are more in the IT related areas and analytical related areas, where we can, and then we redesign it. The whole purpose of this webinar was that we not only try to have the contents, but also the whole architecture. Our focus has been more on knowledge per se till today. Not much of a skill, not much of attitude. I hope there's a change we need to be there. As a faculty colleagues, I will request everyone. I think that is what I think the industry people, Mr. Shastri was mentioning, and that's what Dr. Sharma was mentioning, that the whole process, I think the shift has to be, or really a rebalancing has to be in the knowledge, skills, and attitude area, which is what I think that has been our, I think that's been the focus, which I think is has been our eminent experts. They were able really to get into this part. So with this, I thank every one of you, because there's already a time. It's 5:15, and Sunil was mentioning that you can always have 15 minutes. Sure, Dr. Sharma, you want to really say something, please.
I just want to sum up with one point.
Sure.
The point is that on one hand, I mentioned the change expectation of a faculty member. There is also a message to the person like Dr. Rana, the Vice Chancellor, the Deans, the Directors, that they have to also relook the compensation package of a faculty members, their promotion policies. So on one hand, you are looking for a new teacher, expecting them to deliver to a new environment. But if your compensation package, reward and recognitions are based on the old method, that's also inappropriate. And the last word before I leave, before the webinar is closed, Shastri ji mentioned one word, and that reminded me that I have to use this. Change is inevitable. Change is the constant. So whether it is a faculty member, whether it is an administrator, this is how I interpret about the change. The last words are, सिर्फ 2 कदम रुकने से कहीं दूर ना हो जाए मंजिल. You have to be constantly grappling with the change. सिर्फ 2 कदम रुकने से कहीं दूर ना हो जाए मंजिल. याद रहे, मुसाफिर ही नहीं, रास्ते भी चलते.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma.
Well taken, well
taken. It's wonderful. I must say that I think to get into the course curriculum redesign functional area wise requires a very different thing altogether. I'm sure you will appreciate it cannot be done in a webinar of this type.
Yes.
For example, if you want to have the courses redesigned, let's say in the finance area, then I think you need to have a different thing altogether, different webinar, workshop, or that sort of a thing, or in IT area, for that matter, HR area. I think in the webinar, there was a focus of general in nature as to where we should try to focus on. So it was a focus on the contents, architecture, and the pedagogy. How we should try to get to the 3 things we were concerned with in this webinar. With this, I thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shastri. I think it was a pleasure to have you here. I'm thankful to Dr. Sharma. I think you could spare time. I'm sure your timing is very different in US, and you are here. And my colleagues, those who are attending here, I think you have really made our day. Some of the senior people really being present here. I think because once the senior people are present, Mr. Sushil Sharma, he's here. And Mr. Ramesh is here. We got Professor Raina here. Madam Pandit, she's also making a lot of chat comments. Wonderful, I was listening. Dr. Reddy is a wonderful. I think you have your own opinion always. But a webinar of this type, always, it has to be, say, the direction. It cannot be give you the step-wise step as to how really we should try to move on. So thank you very much for all the audience that you are here. And also the faculty and deans and directors and the students, those who are present. A lot of chat, in fact, which is what I think you are mentioning about this. So nice of you. In fact, it has enriched us as to how really we should try to look at and also have another webinar of type in a very different way, in a different fashion. Because that is what we really look for it. So may not be of this, maybe of a different type. So nice of you. I should not forget, and I must mention, in fact, the people behind organizing this seminar. Venkatesh Lugaru from AIMS, I'm so thankful that really he took pains really to get into this, organizing it. I got into that. And then our Sunil Joshi, who is an IT expert. In fact, he's a wonderful person. In fact, I had a dry run, in fact, around 3 o'clock, and he suggested do this sort of a thing, and all that. I think he's a wonderful guy, and I think so nice of him. And the whole team, Rohini and everybody, those who are stationed in head office, I think we are thankful and grateful. We are thankful to everybody, in fact, who is present. So nice of you. Wonderful indeed. I'm sure you will enjoy it. I think many more, in fact, webinars to come, because AIMS is an association which is going to be there. Bhai Sudhir, this is wonderful, so nice. You could really join from Meerut. So you are present. So Ramesh from Goa is coming. So I think this is wonderful. I think it's a combination we had it. Thank you really for all that, which you are there. Thanks a lot.